Notice I'm again not alone. I'm not by myself. So I'm also very happy to welcome Yasser again to the show. Hello, Yasser.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Yasser Sarkan. I'm a strategic account manager at Sellics. That means I help some of our bigger brands to be successful at Amazon and to best utilize our tool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think some of you probably might know already Yasser. Yasser already attended one or two shows in the past, and he's definitely one of the biggest experts that we have at Sellics, but also one of the most advanced experts around the full industry. Not just because he has also worked with hundreds and thousands of brands around the world to really help them to scale and to grow, but also because he can benefit from a huge amount of his own personal experience in this exciting field. So today's show, we have a couple of very, very big things that we will cover. It's a special show. The first important thing about this show is that it's already a record. It seems that the topic that we cover today is a topic which is relevant for many, many, many brands and agencies out there, as we have a record attendees for this show. And I think there are very good reasons for this. Because what we'll talk about today is the Q4 of the century. Why do we call it Q4 of the century? We'll touch on this in a bit, but what we already want to tell you now is that starting today, in exactly 10 weeks, Thanksgiving will start. And with that, it means that in 71 days, so in 10 weeks and 1 day, Black Friday will happen. And it also means that in 10 weeks and 3 days, Cyber Monday will happen. That is also the official kickoff of the holiday Christmas shopping season. So right now we have 10 weeks until all of the big ones are happening. And the goal of Sellics is to help and to support and to guide you throughout now these critical 10 weeks to ensure that you're equipped with everything you need to make the most out of this critical time. So yeah, I think, Yasser, from your perspective, 10 weeks, how do you feel?
I think it's the most important time because it leaves us enough room to prepare, right? So I think in a week or two, it gets closer, but it's almost too late to prepare, right? So now is the time, 100%.
Exactly. No, I mean, this is something which we also learned in the last years. It's, there are many, many sellers out there which start to think about specific strategies in October, in November. But the truth is, you need to start now. If you really want to get the most out of it, now is the time. And I think we will hear a little bit about why this is the case and also what we can do. So as we have, again, many, many topics, I will dive in straight into that. But before we do so, just again, a couple of housekeeping comments. I think, now most of our listeners in the Zoom meeting, but also on YouTube, also on the podcast have joined. So this is an interactive show. If you have any questions, any comments, please always use the chat. I see already that we have already some which are already excited to see you back, Yasser. So yeah, exactly. Just use the chat, talk with us, use the Q&A. We will cover a couple of very, very, very important topics for any brand or agency in the world to get the most out of the opportunity throughout the next 10 weeks. So please use it. We will always try to answer any questions and comments throughout the show. So to get us directly going, I will quickly start to share my screen and just look at the first thing which is important for us. So for those of you that are not seeing my screen because you're listening via the podcast, basically what we're looking at right now is the latest post in the Sellics blog, which you can find if you go to Sellics, you go to the blog. And the latest one that you will find is called Get Set for the Q4 of the Century with a powerful Amazon PPC strategy. And in that post, we basically have a first big infographic that has a nice, quick recap of 2019, where we basically look at the advertising revenue that has been generated throughout the last year. What we do here, we look at thousands of sellers around the world and how their revenue has evolved. And what we see here are the very, very strong 3 peaks that happen throughout the year. And it's not a big surprise that I think the three peaks which you will see in this chart is Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which all are the big moments in the year for anyone that is selling on Amazon. And also, if you basically look a little bit what happens after Cyber Monday, you will see that actually things continue to increase up to very close around Christmas, where we almost hit the level of Black Friday, but we will touch on this later. So before we now talk a little bit about what this now means for what is ahead of us and what this means now for 2020, I just want to quickly start with a simple audience question. So let's just start with the very first quick question of last year, where we just want to hear a little bit from you. What was the biggest day for your business 2019? Was it Prime Day, Black Friday, or Cyber Monday? Do you see the results, yes, as well, or do I only see them?
Yeah, I do see them as well.
Okay, great. So I think we have already 30 people, 40 people increasing. So I think we slowly come into some statistical relevant results. We also see already in the chat that there is not the option none. So Andre, you can also post in the chat what the biggest day for you was in 2019. Hi, Kevin, the vacation. Hope you had a great vacation. Hi, Nikita, also from Germany. So I will just share the results because I think this already is a fantastic thing to basically kick off this discussion, right? Because what we see here is that we have 36% that said Prime Day was the biggest day, 43% Black Friday, exactly happening in 10 weeks from today, and Cyber Monday with 20%. Yeah, so what do you think about that?
No, it's very interesting, right? And it shows exactly our data, I think, as well, right? So Black Friday, Cyber Monday, two of the most important days in the year. And yeah, I wonder how it compared to the rest of the year. Yeah, how much of your revenue did it make up, right? So if you can comment later on and tell us, yeah, how much of the total revenue it made up during these three events, that'd be also awesome to know.
Which one was the biggest day for you so far?
Oh, for me, usually I like Prime Day, right? Because what I do is I do the Prime exclusive offers, right? I think not many people do that, right? So I do have a competitive edge because you have Prime Day, people are going on Amazon because, yeah, it's Prime Day, they're Prime members, they want to have exclusive deals, right? And then they see Prime exclusive and you have a nice deal in place. It usually gives you an edge over, let's say, coupons or other deals you can do, right? Just that Prime exclusive deal. So that has worked well for me. Maybe some of you can try it out this year.
Fantastic. No, I think that's a great starting point, and we'll talk about this more. But I think, just to start with this, I think the most interesting, thing that at least we have observed when we look at this is it's not the same day for everyone, right? So normally you would think that it's one is the biggest out of the three, but it's not the case. Each day has its own different specific strategies, which work incredibly well and which also work well depending on many other things which are connected to it and to your own product and industry and how you can really make the most out of it. Mm-hmm. So we will talk about all of the three, right? But I think, just out of this, I think it also shows us another thing, which I think is very important. And this is that all of the three have the potential to be the biggest one for you, right? Yeah. And that's I think a big one, which we definitely will try to talk about a little bit more. So we have here Jacob is saying Black Friday 5%, Cyber Monday 5%, a little higher. Yeah, I mean, awesome. That's I think definitely a big one. Okay, so coming back to why this matters, right? So we now know that these are the three very big days of the last year, but now let's actually jump into 2020. Because if we now look at 2020, I think as everyone knows, 2020 is not a normal year. By any means. I know, there's every year that everyone says this year's different, this year's special, right? But I think this time, I think, no one would pretty much argue that 2020 is very, very different than many years that we've seen in the past. And one of the big things, of course, has been the horrible pandemic, which hit the whole world. But this also had many, many effects on different industries and different effects, positive as well as negative. And when we think particularly around e-commerce and Amazon within e-commerce, and we also have a deeper look into advertising, then we see some very, very interesting observations. Because what you see here in this chart now, right? So you see in light gray is basically 2019. Again, what we look at here is roughly the revenue that has been generated throughout the year. What you now see in 2020 is that there has been a very, very big unusual peak or jump, not a peak, a jump in end of Q1, right? So we're talking here about pretty much the second half of March. And what happened in the second half of March was, of course, all the lockdowns. And the lockdowns that hit one country after another, right? So they started in Asia, went over to Europe and then to the US, but basically they spread across the whole world. And what we've seen that all of the lockdowns, there were, incredible, horrible effects of them, but they also had some other things that they caused. And one of them was that the e-commerce growth jumped pretty much through the roof. And this is what we can see here also represented in the advertising revenue. There's a second thing which is worth pointing out, and this is that the other peak, which you normally see here in Q3, last year, 22nd of July, Prime Day hasn't happened, right? So this year, Prime Day hasn't happened so far. And this means that we are on a much, much bigger scale than we normally would have been. But it also means that Prime Day hasn't happened yet. We want to talk about both of these things. Let's first go a little bit deeper into this jump here to quickly understand what actually has really happened. So for that, I'm just opening up the next chart, which you also can find in the blog post on Sellics. And what you will see here now, and I will just quickly walk you through, are three important developments. In the green line, you will see the revenue. So the advertising revenue that has been generated, this is pretty much what we just have already touched on. So the traditional peaks in 2019, around the big 3 days, and then the holiday season, then down again, and then the crazy jump end of March, right? Which we see here in the green line represented, jumping to 81% year over year, which is phenomenal. Then we added two other KPIs, which we think are incredibly important when we want to understand now the strategies and the opportunities going forward. One is conversion rate, and one is CPC. Let's start with conversion rate. So conversion rate is very important because it's one of the most important things to really understand when we'll talk later about bidding strategies, and we also talk later about the best deal strategies that you can have. And when we look at the conversion rate curve throughout the full year, you will normally notice that there's a peak around the Christmas time, so mostly December. So it kicks off around the time of the Cyber Week, a little bit before, so Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then increases roughly to the 20th of December, and then it goes down just before Christmas, and it normalizes again. And normally it's more or less stable across the full year. Of course, there are certain industries where it also is slightly different, but from a top level, this is what is happening. And what you see here, what happened with COVID-19 is also that the conversion rate exploded in March and April. Again, mostly caused by the big effects which we saw earlier this year, many starting to shop online, many don't have the possibility anymore to buy things in their local store. So they essentially started to buy on Amazon. So this is what we see here. But afterwards, we also see that the conversion rate more or less has again stabilized. If we now look at the CPC, a very interesting thing is happening. What is happening here, Yasser? If you look at the CPC curve, what do you see?
Well, what's interesting noting as well is that the revenue and the conversion rate stayed up, right? So it increased in the beginning of COVID, and it stayed higher than the period before, all the periods before. Yeah, so conversion rate is higher than before. It didn't go down again, even though lockdowns went down, right? So lockdowns are not as tough anymore as before. but still people are shopping online. I think a lot of theories were out there that this would happen. No one was sure, but the data is showing it, right? So it's showing that people got used to buying online rather than offline, and you can see it here exactly. And the CPC, regarding the CPC, it's funny because usually when conversion rate goes up, CPC should go up, right? And we see the invert here. Yeah, so conversion rate is going up, CPCs are going down. That means ACoS is much improved, and that shows us it's a huge opportunity for advertisers, right? So you pay less and you get more at the end of the day. Yeah, this is what it means.
Exactly. And I could not phrase it better. I think what we see here is a significant opportunity. You see that the CPCs are going down, conversion rates are going up, and this normally is something which is not happening, because normally, as you say, right, if conversion rates go up, also CPCs go up, and this is normally what happens also in a more competitive marketplace. But in this case, something very interesting happened, because we have observed that many active advertisers also on Amazon, of course, some saw the full thing around COVID-19 as an opportunity. They stayed very agile. They invested in advertising. They invested in formats. They invested in automation. They really took it as a fantastic opportunity to grow the business. And they are now significantly better off than they were before. We also saw a second group, which was very pretty much, a little bit more reluctant. It's not very clear what will happen. Of course, there were also many effects on the supply chain, which also caused a lot of uncertainty, and also some industries were hit worse than others. But even in the industries that were hit the same, we saw very different advertiser behavior. And what we can see clearly are that those that pretty much stayed in the game, that actually started to invest even more, invested more in automation, more in new formats, more in pretty much growing their sales, are now in a very good position, because they really utilize this very unique opportunity. So yeah, I think this is just when we just think about what basically happened so far from an e-commerce perspective, from an Amazon advertising perspective, that we can summarize up that the year is different, because at this point in time, we are still in a very unique situation, because this is still the status quo of today. CPCs tend to be significantly lower than they would normally be, considering still the very high conversion rates and performance that we have right now on Amazon. So that's effect number one. Effect number two that makes us believe that we have the biggest Q4 in history ahead of us is when I come back to the chart where we saw that in light gray, Prime Day has not happened. Might happen. And the reason why we believe this is the following. So I'm just now jumping over to the current Amazon page. And basically what you still see on the Amazon page, if you search for Prime Day, they will say, hey, what is Prime Day? It's the great day for Prime members, deals, everything. But they also say very clearly it's coming, right? So there's not something like it's canceled, will not happen, will happen 2021. No, it's coming. And there have been many rumors in the industry that it will happen in October. There are different days that everyone is talking about. Some heard the beginning of October, some middle, some end of October. But the rumors that are there in the industry are pretty much around October. So it's not confirmed that Prime Day will happen in October, but there are very strong rumors out in the industry. And also Amazon itself obviously has also been very vague about it. Why also we think that there is a very good chance that Prime Day will happen. And if this is the case, then the following will happen. So if you guys see now my screen and you see the current development, then what basically would happen in Q4 is that Prime Day, the peak that normally happens at the beginning of Q3, would move into Q4, which essentially means that we would have something like this. So all the 3 big days in one quarter. Unprecedented. Never happened, and probably will never happen again. I think if this really happens, and at this point in time, it's not officially confirmed, but if this happens, this would literally mean that all the 3 big days, which we just looked at, and where we saw that each of these days is a record day for different brands, agencies, sellers out there, that all of the 3 will be condensed to an 8-week time. And after Cyber Monday, the Christmas holiday shopping season will start, which is another 3 weeks. of an incredible growth opportunity. Yes, if you look at this chart, what do you think?
Well, I get excited, so that's what I think. Because Q4 anyways is amazing, right? Without these days and having the opportunity to have everything in one quarter is very exciting and a little bit frightening if you're not prepared, right? So if you don't have your stock in place, if you don't have your PPC in place, if you're not prepared well enough, with the deals, with the stock, with PPC, you feel like you're missing out. Yeah, so everyone else is doing a lot of money. Yeah, sales are going through the roof, but you weren't prepared enough. So it's exciting and frightening a little bit if you're not prepared, but you still have enough time. This is what I think.
And I agree. I think this is if I just look at this chart, I see, wow, this is I think a Q4 that has never happened so far, and I think there's a good chance that this will never happen again. We have these two big things which will come together. On the one side, the significant growth in e-commerce driven by a new buyer audience. So many out there, silver surfers, are now buying for the first time in Q4 on Amazon. Many that have bought before on Amazon, including millennials, including Gen X, Gen Z, all of them have started to buy more on Amazon. All of these effects will come together in Q4. So this will be already by itself a big thing. But if on top of this, also Prime Day will move to October, then we have like the perfect, let's say, e-commerce storm where everything comes together in literally 8 to 12 weeks where, as you say, I think, Yasa, it's an incredible opportunity for anyone out there to make the most out of this.
100%.
So let me just quickly pause here for a second. I just want to check out if we have already any thumbs, comments, questions. So yeah, we have. Okay, here we go. So we have some questions from YouTube. If I am adding new products that are very similar to what I already have listed, do I need to always do auto campaigns for these new products? That's already a very specific specific question, which we will park for in roughly 10 minutes when we'll talk about campaign structures and formats. So please, Stephen, wait for a few minutes because we will then talk about basically targeting as well as formats and how you can leverage both. So we'll park that question for a little bit. The next question, which we have here, is from Andre, who is asking, based on how many seller accounts, percentage from overall third-party accounts on Amazon, the data is presented, curious on how biased this can be or not. Very good question. So what we generally try to do here, we try to come up with a very, very big set of data. So more or less everything that you've seen here is crossing the 2,000 across different marketplaces. So we have pretty much a very, very big representative set. What of course is still possible, and it is in fact possible, are that the developments are different in each industry. So if you go into the COVID-19 Research Center, which you will still see on the Sellics page, you'll basically see this when you can go down on an industry level and you will see that the effects are slightly different. And what we also will do now in the next 10 weeks, we'll go very specifically down into selected important industries where we know that many that are listening in today are from, and trying to really understand how are the specific dynamics differently in, for example, clothing versus electronics versus home and garden, just that we really can also benefit from specific strategies in every subcategory. But from a top level, to answer your question, Andre, quickly, the data is, I guess, statistically very, very representative and relevant. I hope these address the question. Then we have another question from Joe. How can we get lightning deals to work? We are best products. What are best products and discount? Do you want to take this on, Yasa?
Yeah. So you have to be eligible for the deals, of course. Yeah. If you go to the deals section and you can find for which products you're eligible for which deal. And what's worth noting as well, they have different prices, right? So usually your lightning deal would cost X amount. During these days, it's more expensive. But usually it's always worth the extra amount as well, right? Because we've seen conversion rates are much better, traffic is through the roof, and the higher price has its reason basically, yeah, and it's worth it. I would just, you have to check for yourself which products are eligible for which deals, under the deals section. I think that's the best way.
Perfect. Then I'm just quickly checking the next questions which we have here. So one question from Mian around campaign structure. Same thing here. We will touch on this in a few minutes when we talk about the strategies. So we'll talk about that, but very good question, Mian. Then the next question is from Jeffrey. I heard Prime Day will be around last week of October. Do you guys have any inside information? So if we would have inside information, we would not be able to share it. So the only thing that we can also basically just refer you to is what you also probably read in different forums out there, but also different news outlets. If you search for it on Google, you will see quickly posts from Business Insider, CNN, and others. So I think the current let's say rumors all indicate October, but again, it's not confirmed yet. But if it will happen, I think there's a very good chance that it will happen in October. Just also with the simple fact that November would be probably already too close to the other 2 days, and December would be too close to Christmas. So if Prime Day happens, what again, I think many expect, it would most likely need to happen in the next 6 weeks. And that's also basically what we would recommend anyone to do, is just to prepare for the case that it happens, because what definitely should not be the case is it happens and you're not prepared, then this of course brings you in a tricky situation. Joe, hi Joe, how can sellers launch new SKUs when Amazon is limiting how much we can spend per SKU? Yes, what would be your advice in these cases?
How much you can spend, or how much you can send into the as inventory? Is it, yeah, so I don't know.
Because I guess Joe, you're referring to inventory, right? Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, that's a very good point, right? So I think if you don't have yet a third party that helps you with the logistics, right? Because even if you want to send inventory to Amazon, all the times will be prolonged, right? If you haven't done that yet, try to find a third party. Of course, FBA is always the most important. Yeah, that should be your focus. Just having a second option in terms of inventory management and logistics, another partner that can, during these tough or high demand times, support you in terms of logistics. That is very important. Yeah, and this is one way you could do it. You could then have an FBM offer and an FBA offer. Once your FBA offer is out of stock, you're there with your FBM offer, and you have a fulfillment center outside Amazon that does the fulfillment for you, right? You should have it as a solution because you have limitations, as you said, on an SKU level in terms of how much you can send into the fulfillment centers. And during these times, the fulfillment centers are very busy. So even getting the goods into the fulfillment center will take longer than usually, right? So I think the best advice here is try to get a second option, something outside Amazon that you can then support your Amazon business with.
Great, thank you, Yasa. We hope, Joe, that this helped to address your question. But yes, of course, I think also anything related to how you can maximize your sales with advertising throughout the time depends on the inventory that you have, and it's a very important thing in Q4 to ensure that you have enough inventory, and also that if Amazon doesn't want to send it out for you, that you figure out alternatives, right? FBM or anything else that you can actually ensure that your products reach your customers. So there are a few other questions, which I will park for a second, because we obviously also want to have enough time to talk about the strategies, right? So up to now, we just had a very quick recap of basically why is Q4 the biggest Q4 in the history of humankind, and most likely also in the history of many thousands, hundreds of thousands sellers in the world. Now, let's talk about the strategies. So there are basically three things which, when we think about now big strategies, how anyone can think about maximizing really the opportunity in this critical time. And the first one is relatively straightforward. It sounds straightforward, but it's not as straightforward as it sounds. But this is basically maximize the visibility of your products on Amazon. So how do you do this? And one of the most important things that you can do, and I will share my screen again for this, is to use what Amazon is giving you. And one of the big things that Amazon is essentially providing you, these days are 3 fantastic ad formats that at this moment in time appear all at the 2 most important pages on Amazon. Sponsor products, sponsor brands, sponsor display. All of the 3 right now are appearing at the search results page. So this is the page that appears when you search for any product on Amazon. And all of them also appear at the product detail page. This is the page that appears when you click on any of the products, when you basically can check out, click on the buy box. So these are the 2 most important pages in the Amazon universe. And all of the 3 formats right now are appearing actually on both. If you now think about it from a consumer perspective, and also from let's say you really want to ensure that your products get seen as much as possible and also gets bought as much as possible, one of the best things you can do is to ensure that your top performing products are appearing as much as they can in this critical time where conversion rates skyrocket and everyone just wants to buy. So ensuring to use all of the 3 formats is one of the key things. Before we will quickly jump into all of the 3, including structures, USPs, and everything, I just would like to have another quick question to understand how strong the adoption is right now in our audience today. So let's start very quickly our second survey, second poll, which basically is asking, which of the 3 formats are you right now planning to use in Q4? Which means you're either already using it, you can select multiple formats. So, if you use all or want to use all of the 3, please select all of the 3. If you just plan to use one of them, just select one of them, just to give us some indication of the current situation. We will wait another couple of seconds. We now crossed already over 60% of participation, which I think should be slowly a statistical represent figure. So I will finish this poll now and share the results with everyone. So yeah, these are the results. Sponsor products, 91%, sponsor brands, 64%, sponsor display, 53%. Yasser, would you have expected that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and one reason being that most people are just used to sponsored products, right? I mean, they do have the best outcome usually in terms of ACoS, but I see a shift as well, right? With the new video format and sponsored brands, with more capabilities in sponsored display. I think the other 2 formats are at least as important. Yeah, and usually the competition is less there as well, right? Oftentimes what I see is that CPCs are lower on the sponsored brand side than on the sponsored product side, even though the placement is much more dominant, right? It's the upper banner, it's really out there. You have 3 products, you have a logo, you have a slogan, right? You can present yourself much better. Yeah, I think that's due to less competition, yeah, on sponsored brands and sponsored display side. And you can see this here, just people are very used to sponsored products and usually get good results there as well. I think this is basic, right? This is your foundation sponsored products, but the other 2 formats are becoming more and more important, and there's bigger opportunities, I think, there.
Perfect. So yeah, I think quickly asking our audience today, has this result been a surprise to you? Did you expect that? Yeah. Have you expected this? This is now not a poll, this is for the chat. So you can just answer in the chat quickly. We'd just be interested to see if this is a surprise or not a surprise. So yeah, I think there are some that are definitely surprised. Fabian, Tamara, Ayush is saying sponsor brands is going nice.
Yeah, that's what I see as well.
Joe is not surprised. Joe has anticipated that on video ads. Yeah, I think that's what we heard. Sponsor brands video will be nice.
Exactly.
So Wayne is saying sponsor products fan here too. Thanks, Akari. So we could almost create like different subgroups here. I think it's Tamara PDA is a really good position. And plus looking forward to sponsor brands video. Yeah, so I think this is fantastic. Thanks everyone for sharing some thoughts and insights here. because what we basically are starting to see is that all of the three formats can play an incredible role in the Q4 of the century. And what we try to do and what we will try to do in the next 10 weeks is to provide you for each of the formats, and also as specific as possible to your industry and to your specific products which you're selling, best practices, guides, and also numbers that will really help you to come up with the best strategies to get the most out of it. But today, I also want to give you guys already a very, very short and quick summary of how you can basically think about this and when it really comes to using all of the three together. So I will share my screen again. And basically, again, this is the overview. They appear everywhere. The most common thing, and Yasser, you pointed this out already, in the industry, sponsor products, that's the one that is mostly known in the industry. That's the one where for many, many years, for anyone that is already in the Amazon space that has done advertising for many years, this format, which you will see here, will be very familiar to you, where you basically have an auto campaign for any ASIN, which has the big goal to research new keyword or ASIN or category targets. So this is something which you can literally set up in a few minutes and it will start going. Then you have a next layer when it's a little bit more specific. The good performance of the auto campaign, they're normally harvested into a broad keyword campaign or also to a category campaign. And then the best performers are then also harvested / moved to the exact keywords and exact ASIN campaigns or ad groups, depending how you want to construct that. So from a logic perspective, the logic is relatively simple. You try to scan the market, which you do with the auto campaign, and to research for new targets. Doesn't matter if these are then keyword targets, category targets, or specific ASIN targets. And the best performers you try basically to move down so that you can target them specifically. And the main reason being is that you can be much more specific and dedicated and direct to reach your best performers with that format. So that's, I think, a relatively common structure, which I think is also for anyone that has already spent quite some time in this space, should not be big news. But for those that this is big news, I think this is definitely something which is strongly recommended. The second big one, which now I think gets also more and more attention, is the topic or the discussion on sponsored display. And we saw that this is, from adoption perspective, slightly behind sponsor brands, but I think it's still because it's more a, let's say, hidden strategy in the market. I think it also has to do something with the history of sponsored display. I think many still perceive when they hear sponsored display that this is a remarketing of Amazon format, which basically means that the advertisements, the ads show up outside of Amazon. You need to target specific audiences there. And this is something that can work very well, but is also for many, many out there a little bit more sophisticated and also generally doesn't perform that well as sponsored products, which tends to be lower the funnel. But there's a second piece within sponsored display, which I think is incredibly important to point out. And this is the performance part of it, which basically ensures that you appear next to the buy box on the product detail page. And you can target that specifically with ASINs or with categories. So it's a fantastic performance-driven format to ensure that you appear at the moment that someone wants to buy a product. This is powerful, especially in terms of high conversion rates, because when anyone wants, for example, to make a final decision to buy a product, can be a competitor, can be complementary, can be a substitute product of yours, to appear at the buy box or to appear very close to the moment where the decision is happening, can perform incredibly well. And we basically see that it does. And then there's the third one, is sponsor brands, which we've seen right now with the audience today has the second biggest adoption out of the audience today. Sponsor brands is with that, and that in mind, I think one of the most interesting formats out there because there's so many different possibilities. So because basically these are three formats. So you have product collection, store spotlight, and video. And I think for anyone that wants to go deeper, and we will go deeper into sponsor brands, it's important to distinguish between these three subformats because they have also different strategies, different performance KPIs connected to them. And they also lead basically to different targeting options. Okay, I will pause here for a second. So Yasa, when you look at this, what do you think?
Yeah, I think first of all, these formats are interesting for everyone. Yeah, but you can shift priorities a little bit, right? So if you have a product where you know the buyer journey is a bit longer, yeah, and takes on, it's also off Amazon. Yeah, maybe they do some research on Google, on different sites, right? You want to ensure that you're visible there too, and you can do that with sponsored display, right? If you're selling items that are of lower price and you know people don't really care much, retargeting isn't probably that much of a concern, right? Because people just go to Amazon, buy the first product they see. If it's a good price, good rating, right? They buy it and that's it. So it really depends on the buyer journey, which format is more important than the other format. But in general, I think they fit together really nicely if you use them all together. And you have to prioritize depending on what industry you're selling in and what kind of products you're selling.
Yep, I couldn't agree more, right? So I think we would love, of course, to provide any, let's say, standard principles that say, hey, this works for everyone. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. For example, a format like sponsored brands will depend a lot on how strong is your brand and how strong is basically your perception in the market. And there are a few other things which play a role, which we will touch on in much more depth in one of the future sessions throughout the next 10 weeks. But from a top level, I think it's important to remember that if you want to ensure that your best-selling products in this critical time ahead of you will maximize their sales, you want to ensure to appear as much as possible. And for that, you can use all of the three formats, not just sponsored products. And you can also control them, how narrow you want to target them. And with that, there are many, many powerful strategies to basically boost your sales and to ensure that you're really part of any user journey on Amazon.
100%. I think at the end of the day, you need to cover as much real estate that's possible, right? And we can see here, different formats have different parts of the real estate on Amazon, and this is why most of them are, or all of them are important.
Yes. Okay, I'm just checking quickly the questions. There are many questions, so thanks so much everyone for doing this. I'm also checking out the time because I know we still have two other big strategies which we don't want that you miss. So let me quickly scan through if there's some important questions which we can touch on quickly. So Olya, you mentioned videos are the best in regards to conversion, but do they improve your ASIN keyword rank? Yes, what would be your thoughts on that one?
Well, if you use keywords as targets, right, and not ASINs, they would improve the ranking for the keyword that you're using as a target, right, in your ad, even in your sponsored brands ad. At the end of the day, Amazon, what they want to know is how relevant are you for that keyword, right? And you can show them by spending money and bidding on that keyword and showing, look, I do have a good conversion rate, I'm relevant, improve my organic ranking, right? And this is possible through sponsored brands and sponsored products if you use keyword targeting in particular.
Yep, I think this is a very important point. So for all of these kind of questions and to understand how Amazon and the algorithm of Amazon works, it's always about is it good for the user? And if your video format works because it works in the sense that someone buys your product with that, then this generally is a very strong signal, which will also benefit the product performance overall, and not just by reviews, but also generally by everywhere, as it seems to be relevant for anyone that is searching for specific products. So I think very, very confidently the answer to that one will be yes. Zachary, you were asking, I'm relatively new to the other two kinds, so basically sponsored brands and sponsored display. Does Sellics have best practices recommendations for all of these? It has. And what we're doing right now, though, we're trying to simplify them. So everything that you're seeing right now here, and also what you will see in the upcoming sessions, is to really make it as simple as possible for your unique business to ensure that with a few clicks, you can actually get all of this right. So I don't want to already go in too much depth about this topic, but I think in a few weeks, so in the middle of our 10 weeks time that we're talking about right now, we will have something beautiful here, which will really help to make all of this, everything that you see here, as easy and simple as possible for you, so that you're not missing out on any of these. because we fully understand there are some in the audience today that really want to go as deep as possible into each of these areas. But I also know, or we also know and have heard, that for many it's just about keep it simple, keep it fast, keep it effective. And this is what we also will try to do. And we're working right now on something that will really do this. But other than that, in our blog, you will find also for all of these formats some more deep dives already. Then the next question is from Ayush. So sponsored display ads, always expensive, CPC. And that's an interesting one because we also saw exactly the opposite. So I think it really depends on a couple of factors, which again, I think, come down to campaign structure, ad group structure, bidding, targeting, all of these, right? So I think what we definitely will do also when we will have our sponsored display deep dives is to go very, very specifically deeper into the strategies there, because there are some things which can be the reason why it hasn't worked so far for you, Ayush. Then we have from Dennis, I cannot find retargeting for audiences for Amazon DE Marketplace. This is not available yet. So this should be when you click to sponsor display, you need to select sponsor display, and then there should be an option. Or yes, am I mistaken?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's for all users. Sometimes they roll it out slowly, I think, right? So it might be visible for some, not for others, but eventually it will come, right? Yeah.
So normally, I guess we can follow up on this, Dennis. If you just write us in one of our social channels or any channel within Sellics, we will come back to you. But I'm relatively confident that it actually should be there. And if it's not there, it probably should be soon there. Jan, I think the cost of sponsored display ads depends on the product. For books, they're at low cost. Yeah, exactly. So this is why one of the big things that we will start in pretty much 2-3 weeks is to go for each of the topics on an industry level to really ensure where does which format work the best. Because one thing that we already see now is that there are specific products and specific categories where sponsored brands works amazing, right? And others where it's much more challenged. And this is definitely something which we think is incredible good to know, because this will also help to figure out the right and the best strategies around this.
Yeah, I think one thing is definitely worth noting here as well, that in order to use sponsored brands in the best possible way, you should have a really good store, yeah, or a store at least, right? And another good reason why you should have a store is now the CTA on the product detail page. Before it was just the brand, right? At least in Germany. And now it says visit the store. So it's not only PPC traffic that will get to the store, but also organic traffic. So it's even more worth it to really fix up your store. And it's quite easily done. And once the customer is on your store, he's not distracted by other ad formats, right? So he only sees your products, he can shop around, he's not distracted by sponsored brands, sponsored products of other brands.
Exactly. Okay, I see already many more questions, and I think we will probably not be able to cover all of them, which is a good sign, because for all of these topics we have basically many things planned in the next few weeks, and I will touch on this in a few minutes. But just to touch on a quick one from Joe. So Joe was asking, how do you get the sponsored brands to shop on the product detail page? Can we target ASINs, or does Amazon choose? Yes, so you will see here basically for sponsor brands, you can target ASINs, right? And the best way for basically showing up there is exactly doing this, right? So target ASINs, target the ones where you want to appear, and this will increase the likelihood big time. In the case of sponsor brands, this also needs to be a separate campaign, right? Because for sponsor brands, you don't have ad groups, which is a little bit counterintuitive if you think about it, because these are different ad formats, but you need to create a separate campaign for this. In this case, product collection, store spotlight, or video, and then target the specific ASIN. Okay, Tamara, I saw your question. I also know that we have also a couple of questions in Q&A. I see this is an incredible engagement again. So let me quickly see if there's anyone that we can address quickly. So Fabian, who also has been here many times in the past, will come back. Will the 3 big days be exclusive for FBA and vendor sellers, or can we as FBM sellers also profit from these days? In a nutshell, we definitely can. right? I think because what is happening on these days is not just, this is obviously for Prime, for FBA or for Prime members. Basically, all of the 3 days are pushing a huge audience to Amazon. And it's not going to be just beneficial for one group. But of course, there will be different strategies for Prime Day than for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which will be only possible if you use, for example, FBA or any specific deals around that. Okay, there are a couple of more. I see we have incredible high attendance today, but I also know that we only have 10 minutes left. So I will quickly touch on a few other things just to give everyone a quick heads up of the big topics that you will hear about in the next few weeks. And then we hopefully will still have some time for questions. So the second big topic that we will go much deeper into is the full topic around targeting. Why? Because when it comes to targeting, there are many things that also need to be done correctly if you want to ensure that you benefit from everything in the next 10 weeks. It starts with the basics, which basically means that you need to select the right keywords, that you need to select the right ASIN targets, that you need to select the right categories. But it then continues to ensure that you automate as much as possible from this, because it will be impossible otherwise, if you have more than one product, to optimize this throughout such a time, right? So we'll talk a little bit about harvesting, about keyword harvesting, about target harvesting. I think many that are listening in today probably know this already for sponsored products, but there are also different strategies between the different formats. How can you move automatically targeting options from one to another, and to really ensure that all of the formats benefit from each other? So if you know that something works incredibly well for sponsored products, it probably also should work most likely very well for sponsored display and for sponsored brands. And there are some strategies and ways to make this as simple as possible for you. So Sellics is currently working on specific rules for this. Some of them are already live to ensure that all of that happens automatically. And the third big topic that we'll talk a lot about, because I think it's probably one of the, let's say, if we assume that the formats are right, if we assume that the targets are right, if we assume that the inventory is there, then let's say the biggest important topic out there is bidding. There's no way around bidding. So you need to ensure that you get your bidding strategy right in this period of time. And again, if we think about these 3 days, Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Prime Day is normally the highest average sales price. This is the day where people really want to invest money because they think they're making a great deal. Black Friday, Cyber Monday has the biggest and best ROAS of the full year for the majority of brands out there. In other words, the lowest ACOS, because the conversion rate is so high that you can be almost sure that doesn't matter what you're bidding for, you will be better off. And Black Friday is pretty much in between, but also one of the best days. So when we think from a bidding strategy, we need to try to think about all of these times in different, we need to try to segment them in different phases. In this case, the specific weeks that will happen after Prime Day, the 3 weeks that will be before the Cyber Week, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and then the holiday Christmas shopping season after Cyber Monday. So the 3 weeks between Cyber Monday and Christmas. And then if you want to complete the picture, also the week between Christmas and New Year's. And from a bidding perspective, there are many things to consider if you want to ensure that you get the most out of this. And I will just touch on this now top level. We will have more deep dives on this in the next weeks. But one of the most important things which I just want to touch on today is for the big ones, right? So for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, as well as Prime Day, please ensure that your bids are high enough. In all cases, we see that ACOS is not suffering because the conversion rates are in most cases so much higher that it pays off. The only exception can be Prime Day. There it depends on a couple of other factors, and we'll go into depth when Prime Day is actually happening. But for all the other ones, you can be pretty much sure that you can do almost nothing wrong if you increase the bid significantly. And for the time in between, it's very important not just to decrease it radically. You also need to do this in a very, let's say, reasonable way. There is the week after Prime Day, which normally tends to have a very bad ACOS because conversion rates are very low, but then it increases gradually up to the big moments here around Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And if you read the email about the show today, you probably saw the third point there, which talked about one of the biggest opportunities that almost everyone is missing out when we think about the full year. And this is this beautiful time between Cyber Monday and the 20th of December. Because if you come back to this slide that we looked at when we looked at the prediction, right? So when we looked at pretty much what happens from a revenue perspective, this one, again, I just want to recall this. The revenue after Cyber Monday continues to go through the roof and is in the week before Christmas on the 20th of December, almost at the level of Black Friday. But the CPCs at that time are significantly lower than on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So one of the best times to really maximize sales is to bid very aggressively in that period. And we also will talk more about this when this will come closer, but just that everyone has this already on the radar, because there are a couple of things now. When you think about all of the three, when we think about visibility, we think about targeting, and we think about bidding, one of the big things that is very important is to keep in mind that most of these can be done automatically, right? So you don't need to do all of this by yourself. There are very good automated ways to do the targeting harvesting, which basically means moving keywords and ASINs from one campaign or ad group to another. And on the bidding side, you can also use very simple and easy rules that will do 90% of the work for you, or you can turn on full AI to ensure that all of this happens. And basically, if you're using Sellics, these are the big two things that we highly recommend. You can do all of this manually, but for specifically all of the cases which you just touched on, Sellics is currently working on automated solutions for you so that as much as possible can be done automatically, because otherwise this is just too much. Knowing that per industry, per product, also the dynamics are very, very different. So I will pause here for a second because Yasa, I, as always, underestimated how many topics we basically have for today and how much engagement we also have, which I think is a great thing. So I just will quickly double check the questions which came in. So Moni was asking any plan of Ask Me Anything in one of these episodes. I think the 1 hour episodes writing PPC would be really helpful for us. Moni, yes, I think this makes sense, and I think it's a great point. We will try to get one in. I think there are so many things that are also very specific that we cannot cover them all in a format like this. But we, of course, if we have a little bit more time, if we just dedicate it to Q&As, we can do this. But we also will think about some other formats that might help you. Then we have Ayush, ad scheduling or bid scheduling for certain hours to have good impact, or can we lose a sale? Good question. Please join one of the upcoming sessions when we talk about bidding strategies. So basically, but in a nutshell, especially throughout Q4, like in the high season, it will be more important to appear all the time, right? So yes, you can play a little bit with the bids, up and downs, which you can do a lot with rules, but most likely there will not be a need to fully turn off in most cases. There's some specific cases.
Yeah. And our AI does take that into account, right? We have seasonality taken into account. So if you use the Sellics AI, we reduce the bids on low performing times anyways for you. So no need to really use the ad scheduling. If you want to use it though, just to distribute the budget, for example, right? It's still a very good tool.
Yeah, I think this is a good summary. Then Wendy from YouTube on YouTube was asking, what format would you suggest for brand new products on Amazon with a limited budget? So I think the easiest one is always sponsored products. The most effective one might be a sponsored display. So it depends a little bit on the product. But I think if you really want to start with something, start with sponsored product. It's normally a very good starting point, and then you can take it from there.
Yeah, I think what's important as well, Thomas, is you want to be able to scale, right? So we've seen all these different ad formats. We've seen this very sort of complex campaign structure. I think to have this as a foundation, right, to really automate the research of keywords, to have all the most relevant keywords on a manual exact campaign at the end of the day, right? In all the important ad formats, and then being able, once demand is up, right, just to turn the dial and increase the spend, right, across all of these formats, across all relevant keywords, because you've done the research already through the automation and are ready just to turn that dial, right, and start increasing the spend and the revenue.
Yeah, I think this is a very good point. Ayush, you're welcome. And I know that we are almost coming to an end, but I also see that we have a couple of questions. So I just want to quickly touch on them, on some of them, especially Jacob, because Jacob, you asked the question already 30 minutes ago. So Jacob, you asked any data on the differences in traffic conversion rates with keywords targeting, product targeting for sponsored products in regards to the difference in placements. We are seeing much higher CTR conversion rates on product targeting, but we are concerned we are missing out on traffic by showing up less on the search results page. Fantastic question. Will be one of the big deep dives when we'll talk about sponsored products. So stay tuned for that question. Unfortunately, not an easy way to answer this in 10 seconds, but it's a very good question. And the second question that you had was, do you have any data on the differences between traffic conversion rates and keyword targeting with product targeting for sponsored products in regards to placement? We are receiving much higher CTR conversion rates on product targeting, Yes, we have, right? So let's cover specifically this piece when we go deeper into sponsored products, because I think these are indeed very important points there when it comes to ASIN versus keyword targeting, and also when it comes to placement optimization. So these are very, very big important topics there. Then we had the question from Dennis. Any advice for the travel niche for Q4 that is suffering tremendously in revenue due to COVID? Difficult one. Very difficult. But yeah. And yeah, Jacob, you will get the answer. So I think these are very good questions. And Denise, yeah, I think the only way, if there's an area that is very suffering, is to monitor it closely and to basically, also see what you can do there. But of course, if an industry is fully breaking down and the consumers are not searching for something, then it's very difficult to change this. I think this unfortunately has to be said. Except, just try to really be at the pulse of what's going on and to react quickly. Then Olya, you had some questions in the Q&A. So let me just quickly answer all of these ones. And Olya, you asked the question, how to become advised on the competitor's listing as another item to consider. And please advise the ways to find out the customer portrait since Amazon is not providing info. Another item to consider. Yeah, again, I think this comes also down to the formats. So for you, definitely tune in when we'll talk about sponsored display. I think this is a very big important one, and also sponsored products where you can target specifically with ASINs where you exactly want to appear. So these are normally very good formats to target your competitors.
Yeah. One thing you could do is work with the placements as well, right? So if you isolate an ASIN where you want to be shown on the product detail page, target that ASIN and then increase the bid adjustment for that placement on the product detail page, right? Because you don't want to be shown in the search result next to it. You want to really be shown on the product detail page. So use that together in combination. I think that should help as well.
Exactly. And coming, I know that we have still a few questions, but I also want to be conscious of the time of everyone. So I just asked a very quick last poll for today, which basically asks which kind of topics would you like to hear the most about. We just selected here some top level areas, right? Just to get a little bit of pulse check if our current plan is hitting the nerve or not. It's very important for us to focus on the areas where we think that the most interest is around. I think looking at the results so far, we have a very nice distribution. I think there's a lot of interest in bidding strategies. This is good because it's going to be a very important topic. Targeting is number 2, including campaign setups, which I think is also very, very important in the upcoming time. And then we have also industry insights, automation techniques, keyword research, all of them. So yeah, I think that's already very helpful. So the good news is we will cover all of them. And I will now already give you a 1 minute update where you will find all of this, because some of these things already exist. So here are the results, all right? But just to use now the final 2 minutes, you don't want to miss out on that one. So let me quickly share my screen. And basically, if you go to the Sellics page, right, so sellics.com, what you will see here is a beautiful new thing which just appeared a couple of minutes ago, which is called the Q4 of the century. If you click there, you will see on this page, you will basically see everything, right, that you need to be prepared for the Q4. And as noticed, right, Prime Day is still unclear, but you will see the other ones. The countdown will be ticking. And below, we will link everything that we'll publish around the specific strategies for the next 10 weeks and the 3 weeks between Cyber Monday and Christmas on this page to make it as easy as possible for you. So you will also get all of the tools, the newest reports, the newest deep dives. You will find them all here. So if you haven't have the chance to go through all different parts of the page, which I fully understand, then go to the Q4 of the century, because we will summarize up throughout the next 10 days all the key deep dive strategies, everything that you need. So for those of you, for example, that have not graded the account yet, this will be the first link here. You can get here, you will get a free grading of your PPC account. You will get a nice PDF report after 1 hour that will analyze your account. This is just one of the things that you can also get here, but there are many more which we're currently working on. So check out this page. You can also just ensure to follow us on social. If you want to get an overview, just go to sellics.com/social. And what you basically will see here is the link to all of the channels. Use the ones that you like, use the ones that you follow, because we also, throughout the next 10 to 13 weeks, will publish all the strategies, insights that you will need to get the most out of this. With that said, Mohit, I hope this answers your question. So how can Sellics help? I think Sellics can help by, if you read this page, you will find many of the things how Sellics can help you, but probably from a top level, one of the most important things that I think will be important is to either use one of the Sellics editions and use PPC there, use the automation rules there for targeting, for bidding, or go for Autopilot, which is the AI solution. And this will already do 70–80% of the things that we touched on today. Okay, last 30 seconds, I will end this session with the last one, which we always want to hear. How did you like the show today? Was it helpful? Did you not like it? Was it useful? Do you want to have more of these? Do you not want to have more of these? Give us some feedback. Yasa, did you like it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, looking forward for the next one.
Perfect. Okay, we will. I'm waiting another 10 seconds, but it seems the results are coming in. Thank you so much. It seems that there is, again, good confidence that this has been a good use of everyone's time. So we want to say a big thank you for also the big engagement. If there are any things which we haven't had the chance to fully answer today, please just write either on the YouTube video or just reach out on Facebook or LinkedIn or anywhere, and we will ensure that also this question gets answered. And otherwise, just follow us. The next show will happen in 2 weeks. And then we will continue to go deeper into some of the most important things that will help you to get the most of the Q4 of the century. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Fantastic evening, fantastic morning, wherever you are in the world. See you very soon. Thank you, Yasa.
Ciao.